Hey Ryan, my name is Nebula. I just finished watching your video, The Double-Edged Sword of Working in Japan, and since I'm going to become an ALT in the next couple of years, my question to you is, what are the top 5 things you dislike the most about teaching English in Japan? Thank you.
Hey Nebula, that was a great question and it's something I have a lot to say on because I've been teaching English here in Japan for 15 years and I teach English now. So I think when you first come to Japan and you start working as an English teacher, that's when it's the toughest, that's when you're working in the worst conditions. So, I've been here for 15 years now, things are a little better. So basically I'm going to break this down into 3 parts. I'm going to talk about the business aspect, what sucks about the business aspect of teaching English here in Japan. Then I'm going to talk about the actual teaching, working with the students, teaching them. And finally I'm going to talk a little bit about my own experience. Okay, let's start with the business aspects of teaching English in Japan and what's, some of the bad points about it. One thing I don't like is that you have to look a certain way. When you're working for a business, they want you to be like this. They want you to give off a gaijin image. They want you to look like a foreigner, but they don't want you to be an individual. Like I have this one friend he teaches here, and he likes to wear this crazy hairstyle, bandana. He has his own way. And he was telling me an interesting story. He said like how he goes to interviews and they're not interested in him because he has this kind of flamboyant style, but yet that's what he brings to the table is his uniqueness, and it has nothing to do with his ability to teach English. So they're kind of very narrow-minded in that aspect. It's like they want a foreign teacher, but they don't want you to bring your individuality. So basically they want you to cut your hair a certain way, wear a suit, don't show any tattoos, don't have any piercings. They want you to be clean, a clean-cut person. So you kind of have to fit into those standards. There's not a lot of room for individuality when you're working for somebody. The next thing is having to do customer service and doing FaceTime. That's one thing I never enjoyed about working for an eikaiwa. Eikaiwa means English conversation school. So after I teach a lesson or a few lessons, I'd have to go out into the lobby, and there might be students sitting out there just chatting with each other, and you're supposed to go out there and put a smile on your face and be all fake and shit. And I didn't like that. It's like sometimes I didn't feel like going out there and talking to the students. I was tired from being in somebody's face for the last hour, and it's exhausting. It's mentally exhausting. Not only that, but in terms of this FaceTime issue that I'm talking about, you'll often feel obligated to go to like parties, like students or the school might organize a party and they expect you to go and they don't pay you for that. And then you're doing more FaceTime with the students. And it depends on your personality. Some people like that, but for me it's like, if you're not paying me, I don't want to be in a place that I don't want to be in, okay? And now, after having been here for 15 years, that's definitely something I wouldn't do. Sometimes students will invite you to go to like a salaryman. He'll want you to go to an izakaya with him and just hang out with him. And for me, man, it's like work is work and private is private. I don't want to hang out, like, you're cool as a student, I respect you as a student, but in my own personal time that I'm not getting paid for, I'm very selective of who I hang out with. So that's another thing I don't enjoy, or I have not enjoyed about teaching English in Japan. The third thing is backstabbing liars, pretty much. This happened, sometimes especially when I was here for the first few years, and I was working for it was like a high-end school. It not only happened at that school, but other schools as well. But what I get a lot of is, and not just me, but other teachers too, is like, a student will like smile and be very polite and they'll say, oh, you teach a great lesson, you're such a good English teacher, I enjoy your lessons. And then the next day you go to work and your supervisor calls you in and they're like, this student made a complaint about you. And it's just like, you feel like you're being so deceived. It's like, what the fuck, if you're not happy with the way I teach, just tell me, like talk to me about it. but they pull off this fake shit where they're really polite to you and they tell you and they even compliment you, but then they go behind your back and file a complaint against you. I remember one time this girl made a complaint against me. She said that during the lesson I was looking at my watch and it seemed like I was bored with the lesson. Okay, but the fact was I wasn't bored with the lesson. I was doing time management. I was seeing, okay, now I have 30 minutes left, so I want to get this, and this done before this lesson ends. I was just managing the time. So if that's something she had just talked to me about directly, we could have resolved it right there. Okay, the next thing is a lot of employers, most employers, like most Eikaiwa schools that I worked with, they have this mentality where they expect you to work if you're sick. And that's just, that's kind of like the samurai mentality they have in Japan here. They have a really, what I think is a sick work culture here, working 16-hour days, working overtime even if there's nothing to do just to impress your boss, going out with your coworkers after you've worked a 12-hour day and then going to drink. That's just, that's their work mentality. But I remember several times when I was sick and I felt physically uncomfortable, I felt nauseous, or I had a sore throat. I mean, do you know how difficult it is to teach English when you have a sore throat? It's not fun at all. I had one job where it was very exhausting because I was teaching a whole classroom, 30 students, and I did that for 4 or 5 hours straight. And you have to use a big voice, and I had a sore throat. I was coming down with a cold, and I'm just like, I can't do this, I don't have to do this. And it was like the day before, and I told my boss, I said, look, I've got a sore throat, I know it's going to get worse, and I knew it was going to get worse, and it did get worse, and I said, I can't teach, I'm sorry. And he's like, my boss said, oh, come on, it's just a sore throat, people work with sore throats all the time. And I'm like, I understand, but I'm actually have to use my voice, and it's painful. And not only that, but I had a swollen uvula, and I don't know if people know what a uvula is, but it's very painful to talk when your uvula is swollen. So that kind of mentality is something that's hard to swallow. Another thing that I don't or have not enjoyed about teaching English in Japan when you're working for an Eikaiwa is being forced to teach unpleasant students. What I mean is, okay, it's the school's best interest to have a business that makes the customer number one. And your needs are not the most important, it's the student's needs. So sometimes you'll have to teach students that have a bad attitude. They're just in a bad mood that day. And it's like, fuck you, I'm going to be in a bad mood today, teach me. You have students that are arrogant. I used to teach this one guy, his English level was really high. He thought he was the shit. He had like a PhD too, and he was so arrogant and condescending, and I had to just like be very humble, and he would make really condescending remarks to me, and I just had to ignore it. But I wanted to knock that fucker out. But being a professional, I just had to be cool and teach him. And if it had been my own business, I would have given him a piece of my mind, and I would have stopped teaching him immediately. You'll get students in there that have no interest in English. Like, they don't really want to learn English, but like a lot of companies will demand that their students study English. Now, when I worked at that high-end school, we had a lot of salarymen whose company was paying for their English lesson. So their company was paying for the English lesson, and they didn't really have any visceral interest in learning English. And of course there were guys that wanted to learn English, but there were a lot of them that didn't want to learn English. It was just like part of their job. So it was very hard to teach them because their motivation level was really low. And just being forced to teach students that are arrogant or have a bad attitude, it just sucks. And I mean, and I just talked about being forced to teach when you're sick, sometimes students come in and they're sick, and then that puts your own health at risk. And they have this mentality here in Japan where, oh, even if I'm sick, I have to fight through it. And I mean, that's just stupid, because you're coming to the lesson and you're sick. Now you're going to make me sick. It's just a bad domino effect. And they're sick. They don't feel well. The lesson just drags on, and it just sucks teaching someone who's sick. And basically, to sum it up, when you work for an eikaiwa here, an English language school, it basically feels like you're being a dancing monkey chained to a pipe barrel organ. That's pretty much what it is. You're a decoration. You're a thing. You're there to entertain them. You're just to be a face, to be a gaijin face. And your employers will ask you to do things that sometimes feel demeaning, like singing and dancing for children. I mean, not everybody likes to sing and dance. Like, if that's not part of your personality, you shouldn't be forced to do something like that. Fine, some people like to sing and dance and do children's songs. Some people's personality is okay with that, but not everybody's like that. So sometimes you're asked to do things that don't fit your personality or that you don't feel comfortable doing, and it just literally feels like you're a monkey on a chain. Okay, next I want to talk about the actual teaching, things that are unpleasant about that. Okay, number one is Japanese people just don't pick up English quickly. It takes them a long time to process everything, and from my experience, only the best speakers and the people who pick up things the fastest are those students who have either lived overseas. For example, they've lived in Canada or America, or they had like a foreign boyfriend or girlfriend. People who have had a chance to actually interact with native English speakers. But those that haven't, and that's the majority of them, their English just sucks and they don't progress quickly. I'm sorry, I know this sounds bad, but I'm just giving you the cold, hard truth. Their pronunciation is atrocious. They can't really pronounce R's and L's clearly. Not everybody now, some of them can, but I'm talking about the majority. TH sounds, S sounds, and SH sounds. I mean, it's very difficult because they only have 5 different pronunciations in their language. A, I, U, E, O. All the words are based around those sounds. So in English has a lot more sounds. So it's just very difficult for their mouth and their tongue to form our difficult English words. Another thing that's very frustrating is that with the adult students, they studied English in elementary school, or no, actually a lot of them didn't, but in middle school or high school they studied English with a Japanese teacher, and they were taught English incorrectly. So a lot of times in a lesson I'll get this, well, I was taught this way, I was taught that this way is right, so why are you teaching me this way? When in fact I'm the native English speaker. I'm actually teaching you the correct English, and your Japanese teacher taught you this way. Now you're questioning what I'm teaching you. For example, the pronunciation of the word often. Okay, they're taught here to say often, and I don't know, maybe British people say often, but where I grew up in California, we say often. The word ben, B-E-E-N, like the past participle of the be verb. They pronounce it bean, like B-E-A-N, like the vegetable. Or they say, I'm going, I go to shopping. They all make the same mistakes, and it's because the Japanese teachers teach them this way. And then when I have to recorrect their pronunciation, I always get questioned on it. So that's very frustrating. Okay, next. They don't understand our English tenses. Like in Japanese, there's basically only present tense and past tense, and then there's like a continuous tense form that you can use in the present and the past. but in English we have like 12 different tenses. I'm not sure exactly how many, but we have quite a few. And I'll just be like talking to a beginner and their English is so fucked up, like the tense is so fucked up, I can't even like understand what they're trying to say. And one thing I learned as I got more and more experience teaching English is like, I think beginning English teachers will, in the beginning, they'll really try to understand their student. Like they'll just be straining their frickin' brain to understand the student. And they might even go as far as to pretend to understand them. And I think I even tried to do that when I was first teaching English. But now I'm just like, the thing is like I've listened to so much fucked up English from Japanese people that I understand what they're trying to say now, because I've had so much experience listening to it. But when I teach English, I think from the perspective of, Bob who lives in Alabama. Would Bob who lives in Alabama, who's never talked to a foreigner, would he understand what my student is saying? And that's the perspective I think from. And if they don't cut the mustard, I tell them. I'm just like, I don't understand what you're saying. I don't understand. And I think I think my students appreciate that. They appreciate that honest feedback. And usually when I say, I don't understand what you want to say, they laugh. They're like, yeah, I know my English is fucked up. And at least we can work from that point. We can work on improving their English. Okay, I talked about this a little bit before, but doing the FaceTime is mentally exhausting. Just being in front of a student's face and just giving that customer service, the smiling and being patient and being professional, that's all really mentally taxing. Next, and I talked about this too, but students have this attitude like, oh, even if I'm sick, even if I'm depressed, even if my life is shit, I just got to push through it. And you'll have these students that come to class and they're just like, their like eyes are closed, they're practically passed out, they're exhausted from work, they're really sick and they're coughing all over you. The air stinks because they're literally sick and you're literally breathing in all these germs. It's awful. You don't want to be around somebody like that. Like you wouldn't, if your friend was sick or they were really tired, you'd be like, dude, go to bed. Don't worry, we don't have to hang out today. So that's a downer. And then working with students, like children, their parents, okay, so since the parents can't speak English, the parents were taught English in grade school, they didn't learn it. So they take out that kind of like, they put all that pressure on their children, like, I can't speak English, so you gotta learn it. I'm passing on the genes, but you gotta prove to everybody that we can speak English. So they have put so much pressure on their kids. And some kids like learning English, but there's some kids that have no interest whatsoever in English. They don't care. They want to go play with their rocket ships and toy soldiers and whatever kids play with. They don't care. I mean, I remember teaching this one boy. I had to teach him a private lesson, which is really tough. When you teach kids, young kids like age 4 to 8, with a private lesson where it's just you and them, it's really tough. I found that it's easiest to teach kids in groups because they can kind of play off each other, they can have fun, they can enjoy it as a group. But I was forced to teach this one 8-year-old boy. He could have given a fuck about English. And thank God I wasn't being supervised while I was teaching him. We went into this room, or it was just me and him. I brought a lot of toys and games. In that whole hour lesson, I got about 5 to 10 minutes of English teaching in, and that's about all he could do. And that was his limit. And, I just learned that. I tried teaching him more, and I tried teaching him longer. I tried all kinds of disciplinary techniques. I tried making the lesson fun and incorporating a game into teaching him English somehow. It didn't matter what route I took. He was like, fuck this. I don't care about English. So I finally just said, okay, I think the parents and the owner of this school are expecting too much of this kid to focus on English for an hour. So what I did is I taught him English between 5 and 10 minutes. We worked on some basic readings. Even that was tough for him. And after that, we just played games because I felt it was more important to bond with him and for him to feel like I was a bro, and for him to feel like it was fun to come to these lessons than to force English down his throat. And that's what I did. It was my call. I'm the teacher. Okay, and lastly, I wanted to talk about being an ALT because you mentioned that you're going to be an ALT. Okay, I don't want to discourage you, but for me, personally, I've worked as an ALT twice. ALT means Assistant Language Teacher. I've done it twice, and it was the worst experience I've ever had. What I've noticed about talking about my English teaching experience to you guys in this video is basically what has made the situation worse. The worst is not having any control. It's like the less control you have over your job, the worse it is. And right now, in my current teaching jobs, I have the maximum amount of control, and I'm happiest. So when you're an assistant language teacher, basically, okay, for me, for example, I was working at a girls' high school, and I was teaching teenage girls. Now you think that would be cool, right? All these cute Japanese chicks. Well, that was the cool part about it. But just being this like monkey on a chain, I mean literally, like I could have walked into that classroom with a collar on my neck and a leash, and the teacher could have walked me in there and been like, okay, this is your gaijin, now this is what he's going to do. Okay, monkey, do these drills. And it was just like that. I mean, they were just like telling me exactly what to do, doing these drills. It was so freaking boring, and it was not teaching English. It was doing drills. When I teach English, I like to make a connection with people. I like to teach them how to communicate. And that was just missing from the Japanese style of teaching. I think that these Japanese English teachers grew up learning in this kind of traditional Japanese mentality kind of way, whereas when I teach English, I really give them practical training. I engage them in real conversations, and I make an emotional connection with them. And the Japanese teachers just lacked that, and also they completely lacked the ability to discipline the students. I mean, these were sweet girls, but man, they were little devils. I mean, the teacher had no control over the class. Not the teacher. I worked with several teachers. None of them had control over the class. The male teachers had less control than the female teachers, which is pathetic. And I mean, the girls were rowdy, noisy. I mean, they just walked all over the teacher, and it was so frustrating for me because I wasn't the lead teacher, and it wasn't my job. Like, I brought it up to the lead teacher. I'm like, you're not disciplining the students, and it's not an efficient way to teach because they don't respect you. They're walking all over you. And I was basically told, like, that's my job. It's my job to discipline them. I don't think I actually said that to the lead teacher. I think what happened was I tried to discipline. I didn't try. I disciplined the students, and then the lead teacher said to me, it's not your job to discipline the students. Come on, you're just a monkey. Now do your tricks. So, I mean, that's what I felt like. I felt like a monkey on a chain to a pipe barrel organ, and every time the lead teacher grinded the organ, I would dance. That's pretty much what it's like. So what I've noticed about talking about, what makes teaching English in Japan sucky, it all boils down to how much control you have. The less control you have over your job, over your situation, the suckier it is. And now in my current jobs, I have total control. I control everything. I control who I teach, how much I get paid, what I wear, the rules, everything. And it's great, and I love it. So, when you start off teaching English, that's the hardest. When you get here and you're, the first time you're teaching here, the pay sucks. You might teach 8 lessons a day, and it works out to like $15 an hour. So the goal is, once you realize how shitty your situation is, the goal is to, start learning Japanese and start looking for another job. But basically, you're going to get that work visa, which is really important. Once you get the visa, you can quit the job and you can get hired somewhere else with better working conditions. And you may not have to work 8 hours a day. I mean, for me personally, I think I teach less than 10 hours a week, okay? And with that, I'm able to pay for my living expenses. So it's a really great situation. Anyways, guys, I'm not ripping on Japan or ripping on English teachers or teaching in Japan. I was asked, what are the worst things about teaching English? And that's the information I'm giving you. So I hope you learned something from it. And if you guys have any questions you want me to answer 100%, because I can't always respond by private messages, make a video of yourself asking the question, load that up to ForShared, and then send me the link through YouTube or through Facebook. Okay guys, hope you enjoyed this. Have a nice day.